Hi, I'm Dee Dee Bass-Wilbon.
And I'm Dina Bass-Williams, and we are the Bass Sisters.
And this is Policy and Pound Cake. We are so excited that you're back for this second episode of Season 4. But before we get started, the beginning of March, we are going to be reading, well, starting in March, we're going to read again our book, Prayer and Pound Cake. And we want you to join us. So if you have not gotten your copy, please get your copy today. If you already have a copy, invite a friend and get a copy for a friend. But 31 days of praying for your business. We really want you to join us for Prayer and Pound Cake starting in March. So don't forget to get your copy. You can go to Policy and Pound Cake to pick up your copy today.
And I am so excited to share this conversation that we had with Lisa Nelson, the CEO of ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council.
Lisa is amazing. She is a total boss.
She is a boss.
She is a mama bear. I'm a mama bear, and we have seen the power of mama bears over the last couple of years. And Lisa is on the front lines. She's amazing.
She is on the front lines, and she actually has been on the front lines for decades now, leading some of the most important wins in legislative history, quite honestly.
Yep.
She was with Newt when the Republicans took over the majority for the first time in over 40 years. She's worked for Visa, America Online, AOL, over the years. So she has the corporate experience, but she also has the legislative experience that gives her the perfect portfolio to lead ALEC. And so she's been leading ALEC for almost a decade. And you know, some people have described ALEC as, I loved that description, guards at the gates of freedom.
Yes.
And if they are guards at the gates of freedom, then Lisa Nelson is the head guard, and we are excited to share this conversation with you.
Absolutely. Take a listen. We are so excited to have Lisa Nelson, President and CEO of the American Legislative Exchange Council, join us today on Policy and Pound Cake. But before we get started, we're going to look at a quick video.
The states continue to work as a force for good in promoting ALEC's principles of limited government, federalism, and free markets. State legislators take the lead in improving the lives of Americans and providing innovative policy solutions. Together, we refine ALEC model policies that will have an impact across the states. ALEC believes that policies are designed to protect the individual, promote prosperity, and push back power to the states. These model policies are the result of countless hours of review, research, and stakeholder collaboration. The country is on the precipice of a tremendous opportunity to build a new American majority that will help steer our nation to a brighter future.
It's really where policymakers from all over the country that have a conservative mindset can get together and really figure out, you know, what can move the needle in our state and how can we be those incubators of democracy. I think ALEC is helping organize and put all those thoughts together.
And these policymakers are truly the guardians at the gate for freedom.
ALEC works for the state legislators and officials who put it together. So I really encourage people to visit alec.org, ALEC.org.
Lisa, I absolutely love that video of ALEC. It's hard to believe ALEC was founded, you said, 50 years ago. Dina just celebrated her 50th birthday. But it was founded 50 years ago on the principles of limited government, federalism, and free markets. How are those issues even more important today?
Well, I love that you showed that video. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be with you guys today. And your opening question is spot on because it's kind of the backbone and the everything that we live by. Limited government, how that is important today is just as important as it was 50 years ago. But we absolutely see examples every day where government is kind of mission creeping into our lives, whether it's our individual lives through prices and the cost of living for people going to the grocery, and additional taxes and things like that on our everyday items like gas and food, or whether it's just in that encroachment on policies at the federal level. Federalism, the third tenet of our three prongs, is all about that devolution of power and making sure that if there are decisions that are being made about your lives or my lives, that they're being made closest to us, and that they're being made by people who are maybe can understand, kind of the world that we're living in. So making sure that that devolution of power, meaning not Washington, D.C. making decisions for us, but maybe our local chambers, maybe our local legislation and legislators in their state capitals are making that decision. And then finally, the free markets. That's for us something that is so inspirational and maybe even aspirational for, I hope, everybody. And that is that we believe that with competition and with a free market, as opposed to some kind of prescribed notion of what the market should look like, that competition will make every single person in the system rise and get better and force themselves to kind of be the best version of themselves. So free markets from an economic standpoint is one thing, but I think free markets from what I'm talking about is more about, letting that competition thrive and letting us kind of figure out what's the best solution for us, whether it's a policy oriented decision or whether it's just a kitchen table decision that we're going to make. Let us make that decision.
I really like that. Dina and I, we've been working in politics, and we started in Columbus, Georgia, our hometown. And we started when I was 12 and Dina was 11. And when you talk about local, Tip O'Neill famously said, all politics are local. And so how and what is ALEC doing to help and support at the local level?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that. And I love the fact that you're from Georgia, and you probably loved having Governor Kemp in that video then, because our annual meeting was in Atlanta, Georgia this last year, which was so fun. We love that state, the Peach State. Tip O'Neill is right, and all politics are local. And, what he meant about that, and he and Ronald Reagan kind of at that famous, bipartisan relationship that they had, they both knew that when you connect with the people at the local level, that's when you're really having success in what you're trying to do. And for ALEC, our members are made up of state legislators. Those are the state legislators, not the members of Congress, not the U.S. senators. So they are the state legislators that go to your state capitals. And we also have something called ACE, the American City and County Exchange, which is city councils, county executives, and local mayoral candidates as a part of that. We call it kind of ALEC's little brother. Because we realize that as people are looking to try to achieve freedom in their lives and freedom from government, and as folks are trying to interject that government control, they'll try to do it at the federal level, they'll try to do it at the state level, they'll try to do it at the local level. I'm talking about, issues as specific as who's regulating your broadband, who's making decisions on your education. So ACE is, taking a look at those policies, making sure that we're trying to keep the burden on businesses and the burden on individuals as small as possible. And then ALEC is doing it at the state level in that state capital. And, you might be going there in the future in this conversation, but these issues range from education to economics to healthcare to communications and technology to civil justice to criminal justice, even to international relations. Interestingly enough, we have an international relations task force at ALEC because the states and localities have relationships and have mutual beneficial kind of outcomes in working with local areas in other places around the world as well.
Wow. As Dee Dee mentioned, we started working in politics, 4 decades ago at 12 and 11. I like saying that because it means she's older. But we also got a lot of training, on our college campuses. And as young college students being involved in campaigns and really learning from professors who were okay with the marketplace of ideas.
you know, Dee Dee has a 20-year-old son who's in college, and 21. Oh my gosh, I forget that. 21. And one of the things that concerns us as we look at him, and even the, you know, I'm a professional aunt, no kids. So as I look at my 15-year-old niece and my 21-year-old nephew, and their seats of like the places where they are supposed to have the marketplace of ideas, freedom of expression, we feel like those that area is being marginalized, and it's shrinking and shrinking. We're so excited to see that ALEC has a Center for Free Speech, and it focuses on college campuses. Can you tell us a little bit about what that center does and how you're helping to advance the marketplace of ideas and free speech?
Sure. You know, I got my start in politics on my college campus too. So love hearing that you guys, you know, that's what inspired you and that's what kind of motivated you. I grew up in California. Ronald Reagan was governor when I was in the 70s and when I was in college and high school. And then he became president under, you know, as I was a student at UC Berkeley. And, you know, you talk about campus free speech, and Berkeley's the hotbed of all of the debates and things that are going on. But I think, number one, I just want to say how important it is as a student to engage at that level. And when you're younger and your mind is kind of being shaped and you're thinking about what do I think about these issues, whether it is, you know, whether I feel free to make my own decisions, or whether it's I feel like my professor is free to kind of say what he thinks and I feel comfortable responding. This is the time. College is the time when you're really that marketplace of ideas that you described. It's so important. At our Center to Protect Free Speech, we're focused on a lot of things, but I will say that the campus free speech part, and particularly over the last couple of years, less so maybe in this coming year, but in the last few years, that has been really an important area to protect, because I think that there's professors who at times don't feel like they can say what they believe for fear of being, you know, intimidated or being kicked out. There's a model policy, and ALEC basically exists to develop model policy on these issues. And then that model policy is shared with legislators. And if they want to pass it in their states, they can. But we passed something that's a recommendation for different states called the Forum Act a couple of years ago. And the Forum Act basically essentially protects professors so it's legislation that would protect a professor from being intimidated or penalized for saying what he believes. It also creates kind of free speech zones or eliminating these free speech zones, because essentially you want to make sure that people feel able to talk and believe and see what they want anywhere they want. And it also provides for education of the police force, to make sure that if you've got enforcement, if you need enforcement on your campuses, that the police force is educated and understands kind of how to mitigate a situation. But it is huge. And I think that, you know, the Center to Protect Free Speech kind of ebbs and flows with what the cultural conversations are taking place in the country. There's also commercial free speech, which is just essentially, you know, making sure that businesses feel comfortable saying what they believe in. You know, in the 40 years that I've been in public policy, this speech issue has become, you know, a big question mark. And I know that conservatives and liberals both agree that free speech is a really important tenet of the American kind of, you know, ideal, and making sure we protect that going forward is really important.
Yeah, you won't get any argument with us on that. We are huge supporters of those initiatives and that language, because we obviously run our own business. You know, we're small business owners, and we are always inspired by companies, organizations that that do have the courage to speak out. And I think we're in a position where
even if we disagree, it's very important that everybody has that ability to say what they believe and what they think.
And in the workplace, like we will say, like we're going to say it anyway,
right?
If we're going to lose clients or get fired or whatever, but we shudder when we think of people who actually lose their business, lose their ability to support their families because of policies that don't allow them to speak freely. So that's huge. You know, one thing we're sort of, Dee Dee and I are a cross between policy nerds and we go on bunny trails a lot. I'm going to tell you that as we were preparing for this interview, we went on a bunny trail with the resources that ALEC offers, and quite frankly, we obviously have known about you for many years, our time in DC, but I really wasn't aware of the volume of things that you publish, the rich, what is it? Rich state, poor state.
We could be on the bunny trail now if we hadn't said, okay, we've got to stop because we've got to get ready for the interview.
Yeah, because we were on a full bunny trail of like, okay, where are we going to retire?
I think the answer is Utah.
We live in the People's Republic of Maryland, so we were like, okay, we can't retire here. We've got to find a place.
So we love that resource, and would love for you to tell us about how you determine what states rise to the top and what states are in the kind of poor state category, but also other publications and other resources that just regular everyday Americans can dive into on your website.
Well, thank you for that question. And I'm laughing because, you know, our Rich States, Poor States is basically our kind of, you know, if you call it a premier publication of the organization. It's 15 years in the making. We've had 15 episodes or volumes of it. And I think that the answer to your question on retirement might be Utah. Although Arizona is making a strong showing. And what we've done is essentially set up a list of criteria, and you can go to it on our website and kind of look at that criteria. But it is a methodological approach that Dr. Art Laffer, who's with Laffer and Associates and has been an advisor to Republican presidents and Democrat presidents on their economics. He was a counselor and an advisor to Governor. The California governor, that Jerry Brown, that was a big Democrat that cut taxes. But these criteria essentially have remained static. We've added a couple things recently as a result of the pandemic and COVID, but the criteria itself are outlined. And for the reason that we've kind of kept that static is so that we're comparing apples to apples 15 years over and over again. And I think that's really important. And what's happened in these 15 years is that the states are starting to pay attention and starting to see. And even in the news, you're seeing more and more reporters and folks talk about how many people left the state and how many people moved to the state and what the contributing factors are. And contrary to what we always have thought, it hasn't just been the sun.
Right.
It's about your economic conditions and whether, and you know, I used the word freedom earlier, but whether you're free to have that small business, whether you're free to send your kids to that school that you want, whether you've got that freedom in your family decisions that you're making. And we joke about Utah, but Utah has been #1 for 15 years, which is striking. They have created an economic climate in their state that is, I mean, you could call it kind of a freedom index that is deregulatory. If you want to start a business, if you want to send your kids to different schools, if you are talking about competitive healthcare prices, all of those things they've built into their economy to make it affordable. And what's been really, really fun to watch in the 9 years that I've been CEO here is that competition between the states. Because believe it or not, we actually had a button that we have at our meetings, and it says, "What's your state ranking?" ? It's a big red button that everybody wears. Of course, the Utah guys all wear it because they want to rib all their fellow legislators.
Right.
But what's your state ranking kind of provokes and asks the question, well, what do I need to do to be in the top 10? What do we need to do as a state legislature to move our state up? And Arizona, in the last couple of years, has asked that question and has responded. They brought themselves back to a 2.5 tax rate, flat tax rate in this last year. And not only did they do that, we were talking about free speech and education a little bit earlier. They actually passed something called the Education Savings Account, which means that all of your dollars that you pay in your taxes, whether you're a parent or not, but all of those dollars can move with the child. Some states call it the backpack dollars. Some states call it the Hope Scholarship. But it essentially means that your money is, fungible. It's like when you move, you take your cell phone number with you now. It's a portable number. You don't want to get a new number. This is basically saying you've paid this much money in your taxes to your state for your education of your kids or of children writ large. And we believe that you might have the choice. That does not mean that the public schools it's not a knock on public schools. It just means I might think that for my child, this school is better than that school. This one is more on arts and music, and my child is more eccentric in that way and would really thrive in that. So,
Lisa, it's so interesting to me, these things that you are describing for this index. Are there states that are stubborn? Because we see states that continue to, I guess my question really is, if we see these things work, why isn't everyone doing it?
It's befuddling, isn't it? It really is. Like, you kind of say to yourself, what's wrong with you guys? I will say that invariably, like Utah and Arizona and North Carolina, Indiana are often in the top 10, Utah always being number 1. I don't know if they're going to be number 1 this year, but there are some states that are always in the bottom 10 too. And New York, no surprise there. California, unfortunately, my great state of California. And, I think it's a different philosophy around thinking that it's pretty simple, thinking that government is the answer as opposed to individuals. And, if you look at what happened even in the recent pandemic, the states that placed a value on freedom and the states that said, you know what, we think that you can make a decision about the safety of your family and your business. We're not going to close the schools, or we're not going to, obviously we're going to work within the constraints that we have. But in the administration approach, it was kind of a top-down approach of, we're going to set a vision of safety and everything else, but we're going to let the states decide. I thought it was really locally executed state. The money came down from the federal government, but then it was locally executed. And when you look, I don't know if you've gone down your rabbit hole on the different states, but interestingly, Georgia opened up early and didn't close its schools for long periods of time, and in fact has done really, really well. Florida, everybody knows about the Florida example. Now, Florida has the benefit of being a sunshine state where you can be outside and all of that. But even South Dakota, which, that's not really a warm state throughout those winter months. And followed the lead of Florida and Georgia and said, you know what, I'm going to let my state, open up. I'm going to let people make decisions. I'm going to really focus on where I need to make sure that we keep people safe, which is maybe in the senior citizen homes and things like that. Iowa, Governor Reynolds also did a really, really good job. She was really methodical about how she approached her response and looked at the different zones of her state and basically said, you know what, this whole region here it's a lot more populated and they're doing this, and we're gonna follow this approach, and this is more rural and we're gonna follow this approach. So, sometimes those cookie cutter answers aren't exactly what's best for you at the local level. So that's the rich states, poor states, and some of those other things that we're doing. Take a look at that and really encourage the states to compete against each other in a friendly manner, but also so that each one of them can get better. And it's unfortunate for those states that really haven't gotten the message yet.
Well, I'm hoping that Arizona really gets up there, because Arizona's warm, and I could see retiring in Arizona. And
Me too.
I could do Utah.
I could do Utah, but Arizona,
My first. Yeah, I was gonna say my first choice would probably be Arizona, but I could do Utah.
Are either of you guys golfers or tennis players or anything like that? Because
well, I am a much better putter than my husband is. We live on a golf course community, and he loves to golf. He just he could go out as soon as it's 50 degrees, he's out on the golf course. So
yep. That's how I am. So there's like criteria of where I would retire. And it's like, okay, are there good restaurants? Are there smart people? And are there golf courses and tennis courses? So, one other thing you mentioned about publications, I don't want to just leave it at rich states, poor states. We do have an education report card where we rank the different states around their state of education. Clearly what I was talking about in this choice and the education savings accounts, the Hope scholarships would factor into that freedom again of being able to make decisions on your own. I would say especially, when I look at, I've used this example before, but I still can't get over it. And your audience may really appreciate this, but, Ron DeSantis got elected in Florida 4 years ago, forget the recent reelection, but he got elected with about just a 2% margin. And there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that just totally struck me. And it was that his percentage among single Black mothers made the difference in his vote.
Wow.
And there's a whole coalition of women who, African-American women who love Ron DeSantis down in Florida because they feel like they were given that opportunity to make a decision for their child. And that was the difference. It was that 2%. And I think that's it. We oftentimes get lost in what really matters in politics and what you hear on TV and what the media is kind of spoon feeding us. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a single parent and you want to educate your child, or if you are trying to figure out a better life for your family, you're going to look at things like, well, how much does it cost? What's my cost of living? And what is it that's going to make a difference and get me or my children in a situation where they're better off than I was? That was that old question back in the Reagan days. Are you better off? Do you think you're going to be better off than your parents? And or, are you? And that used to be every decade. The answer was yes, 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 because America was thriving and growing. And I think that we need to get back to that kind of positioning, because I think that's what's going to help us figure out, what is it we need to do to stay competitive as a country.
Right.
We have that rich states, poor states publication, but maybe there should be rich country, poor country comparisons too, to recognize how great this country is and to kind of see that the way our system runs with that freedom and that, kind of democratic process is what's best for the whole world. If we can just, get to that place.
I'm going to have to say amen to that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Lisa, this has been so much fun and we so appreciate it. But before we let you go, we have a very important question that we have to ask you. So when you were sitting around talking policy, what was your favorite dessert?
What was my favorite dessert? Well, that's super easy. A chocolate torte.
Oh,
I am a big, I know you have politics and pound cake, and maybe I should have said pound cake, but my go-to dessert is chocolate torte. And I have a little square of dark chocolate every afternoon at about 4 o'clock. just to keep.
Lisa, I love dark chocolate. Oh,
well, you
my
can never go
goodness.
wrong with chocolate.
You really
I personally
can't.
like milk chocolate.
I'm a
but
dark chocolate girl all the way, so we're there, Lisa.
Dark chocolate is a
Good.
little healthier than I want to eat. If I'm going to eat chocolate, I'm not looking for the health factor, which is what my sister and my husband are always saying. But excellent. You can never go wrong with chocolate.
And a little red wine goes really well with chocolate too.
I like that as well. I like that as well. Well, Lisa, thank you so much. We have really enjoyed this. This has been absolutely amazing and so much wonderful information. And Alec and your team, you guys are doing an amazing job.
Thank you so much. If you want more information, go to alec.org. And I love seeing you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Didn't we tell you that Lisa was a boss?
She is a total boss.
Total. That was great.
That was great. We definitely recommend that you check out the resources that ALEC provides. There will be a link in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. And check out ALEC, all that they're doing on the front lines.
They are, and they're doing some really wonderful things. But also, don't forget, get your copy of Prayer and Pound Cake starting in March. We're going to be reading, and we want you to join us, so don't miss it.